Respected Dr. Kanoyer, Dr. Qasid Malla, Madam Samra Mohsin Khan, ladies and gentlemen, as I stand before you, I am reminded of a story from the epic Ramayana. Rama's army was building a path across the channel between India and Sri Lanka. His warriors carried heavy rocks from afar and dumped them into the sea. A squirrel rolled in the sand, ran to the brink of water and washed itself. As it did so over and over again, Rama was curious. "What are you doing, little one?" he asked. The squirrel thrust out its chest, twirled its moustache, and said, "I am helping your army in building the bridge. In this august gathering, my role as a novelist is not any different from that of the squirrel amidst Rama's mighty warriors." Almost 200 years ago, a soldier deserted the army of British East India Company. His name was James Warren. In order to avoid arrest, he traveled through isolated territory. Wandering through the countryside, he came across the ruins of Harappa. He vividly described the ruins in a travelogue which he wrote under a pen name. Later, systematic excavation in Harappa and Mohen-jo-Daro brought the Indus Valley civilization to light. Its narrative value was first recognized by Hindi and Urdu novelists. In 1948, Rangaiah Raghav set his novel Murdon Ka Tilla in Mohen-jo-Daro. Its gloomy title did not win it many readers, and for another half a century, no novelist dared to write on Indus Valley civilization. Then, in 1998, Yaqub Yawar boldly wrote Dil Moon. In 2004, Mustansar Hussain Tarad came out with his Bahao. Bahao was recognized as an Urdu classic by the BBC. In the same year, Eileen Kernahan wrote the first novel in English based on Indus Valley civilization. Its title was Winter in the Plain of Ghosts. Since then, 10 more novels have been published, and the latest 3 of them are written by British and American authors. At last, the ancient civilization has been internationally recognized as an apt setting for historical novels. Thrilling adventures, torrid romances, mythology, and the paranormal have been plotted in this setting. Each of them has a certain readership. In that way, all 14 novels together go a long way in creating interest in the Indus Valley civilization. You might wonder, how could one extract romance or thrill out of what we see of this ancient culture today? Ruins, skeletons, broken pottery. Let me share with you how I conceived my novel, Trade Winds to Meluha. As an engineer, I was drawn by the Bronze Age people's expertise in town planning and underground drainage. But what amazed me was that scores of Indus Valley merchants had settled in Mesopotamia. I also found that Mesopotamian women were quite emancipated. They had the rights to possess property and to seek divorce. Close trade and cultural links existed between the two civilizations. So I reasoned that Indus Valley too ought to be an equally open society. These three achievements of the Indus Valley people triggered my thoughts, and that culminated in the writing of Trade Winds to Meluha. How does novelizing the ancient Indus Valley help the man on the street? A recent survey says that travel and tourism contributes almost 10% to the GDP. It supports 1 out of every 11 jobs in the world. Novels help tourism and thus create more jobs and wealth. Great Britain and Hong Kong use novels to attract more tourists to their respective countries. Increased tourism also motivates the local population to conserve their heritage. When people benefit from tourism, they do everything to protect and maintain whatever that brings it about. How can we attract more tourists through the medium of fiction? 3 approaches come to mind: translation, story competition, and involving a professional author. Yaqub Yavar's Dilmun was written in Urdu, but then translated in Hindi. It made the novel accessible to a readership that was equally widespread as that for the original book. Secondly, a university could conduct a story competition with the theme of Indus Valley civilization. The top 10 entries could be published and circulated widely. A few selected ones could also be filmed and shown over TV and the social media. Thirdly, a country could either motivate or hire a novelist to set his novel in its archaeological sites. Lorraine Adams, a Pulitzer awardee, is writing a novel set in Indus Valley civilization. She is motivated by what she perceives as the positive influence of the ancient culture on the Pakistani society today. 4 millenniums ago, our ancestors envisioned what we might call smart cities. With determination, they turned that vision into reality by building cities like Harappa, Mohen-jo-Daro, and Dholavira. Today, let us dream that every Indus Valley site will be developed on the lines of Xi'an in China. It's a place where an entire army of terracotta warriors is well maintained. It sounds quite optimistic to come about, doesn't it? Governments of both India as well as Pakistan have more pressing priorities on their hands. It isn't easy, but I think it is possible if we significantly raise the number of tourists visiting the ancient Indus Valley sites. Let me recount an anecdote which shows how politicians tend to think. It happened 6 months before the last general elections in India, and it happened in a state which sends the maximum number of representatives to the Indian Parliament. The government directed archaeologists to start excavating in an old fort. A Hindu mendicant had dreamt that there was a large cache of gold buried somewhere inside. The government's objective was obvious: to influence gullible voters. It was going through the motions which showed that it highly respected their religious leader. If at all some gold was found, that would be a bonus to the treasury. This case demonstrates 2 factors which compel a government to act in a democracy. One is the hope of garnering votes, and the other income to the exchequer. Increased tourism can have a dramatic effect on employment at the local level. It also adds to the government's revenue in the form of increased taxes on tourist-related services. In order to achieve rapid increase in the number of visitors to Indus Valley sites, we all need to pool our expertise. Towards that goal, I intend to set my forthcoming novels in Indus Valley civilization. Thank you.